Time being 6 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Don,
Here.
Dan,
Here.
Wanda,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Sherry.
Here. Item number 3, does any commissioner have a reason to abstain for a financial or a non-financial conflict of interest?
No.
Do not.
No.
No.
I do not. Item number 4 is approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Healy, a second by Fox to approve the agenda as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda is approved. This is the time for public comment. Would anyone care to make a public comment? Public comment is closed with no comment. Item number 5, approval of minutes from January 19th, 2021.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion by Healy, second by Kettering to approve the minutes for January 19th, 2021. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. We also have minutes from January 22nd of 2021.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion by Kettering, second by Healy to approve the minutes for January 22nd, 2021. For the discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. And finally, we have minutes for January 25th of 2021.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Fox, second by Clemish to approve the minutes for January 25th of 2021. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. That concludes item number 5. Item number 6, we'll start with the claims.
On page 6, the item for vacation sick leave payout, I assume is for
Lori.
Lori. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to approve the claims.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Kettering, second by Fox to approve the claims as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. January payroll.
Move approval of payroll.
Second.
I have a motion by Clemish, second by Healy to approve the January payroll. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Wage resolution.
And we just have to, by law, we have to print everybody's salary in the minutes.
You need a motion, you don't?
Yep.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Kettering, second by Fox to approve the wage resolution for 2021 as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. SDSU agreement, I believe this is for the 4-H.
Yep, it's a yearly.
Any discussions around the agreement?
No, I'll mention though, I did go through this review that they have and sent that in, so,
Oh, you did? Okay.
yes.
I was going to give it to Sherry, but no, I don't have to, Sherry.
I'd move approval of the SDSU agreement.
Second.
I have a motion by Healy, second by Kettering to approve the SDSU agreement, which is a memorandum of understanding between SDSU Extension and counties of South Dakota for 2021. Further discussion?
Patty, do they pay a portion of the salary then, or with this agreement, or what does this agreement exactly do?
It's just, I think it's with a, it's a different, for the 4-H,
It's for the advisor. We pay, this position will work 20% of time in Yankton County, and that's $4,124.20 for this year.
And then we supply an office for them. So who we have is Lauren. She spends 20% of her time in Yankton. I think 40% in Union and 40% in Clay.
yeah, I think it's split between the counties.
Is that a state position then?
Mm.
Okay. Great.
Further discussion? So the motion is to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. Agreement is approved. And we have some unanticipated revenue. Do you just need one motion? Or
Yes.
okay. So it looks like insurance
For the sheriff,
payments.
I'd move approval of the unanticipated revenue.
Second.
I have a motion by Healy, second by Kettering to approve the unanticipated revenue as presented. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. I need to- Just once here. Yep. Okay. All right, that concludes item number 6. We are at item number 7, which is to approve a new secretary for our county health nurse. Coming up, Ms. DeYoung.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm here seeking approval, commission approval for our full-time secretary position. I believe I provided application resume for that person.
And I think everyone got a copy of the
I got a copy.
background check.
I don't know if I get a copy. Was it emailed or what?
Yeah, it should just been emailed out. Should come from Gary.
We interviewed her on January 21st. Jen and I did. I did a reference check on her on the 25th with her employer, current employer. Joe was great. He reached out to her and did a phone interview with her, offered her the position, once given permission to do that contingent on background check and commission approval. She accepted that position, called me back, said tentatively she could start February 10th.
Did you get many applications?
We received 10. We planned to interview 5. We interviewed 4. 1 didn't show up. We had some really great applications.
Okay, so we just need a motion to approve the recommendation. Would that be good enough, or do we need to actually have a
what's her
name?
name? Yeah, because
Oh,
we
I'm
did for
sorry.
that for the soil too.
Chantel Nielsen.
I'll move to approve Chantel Nielsen as the new secretary for the county health nurse.
Second.
I have a motion by Clemish, second by Healy to approve Chantel Nielsen as our new county health nurse secretary. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. You have approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Ideally.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That when folks go up to the microphone, that they take their masks off to speak, in as much as I've watched these meetings from home and they're at best muffled with the, I mean, I can speak right into the microphone, so it's not, I would hope, hard to hear me, but
Sometimes, yeah.
It
they don't-
is. It is
they're
hard.
Not real close to the mic. You're
Yep.
good.
you're good.
All righty. So we are now at item number 8 and very much ahead of schedule here. Gary, do you want to come up and be support for? So tonight, this JDAI decision is essentially we need to have approval from the commission to apply for the grant. Is that-
Correct.
That's
yes.
correct.
And so that's the first step is just to apply for the grant to get funding for the position, and then we can make decisions from there.
Okay.
And when you say make the decision from there,
Basically, then the next step is to decide where that person is housed. And there's been some discussion currently about usually it's kind of split. There's a few counties that have it at the state's attorney's office and a few that have it through the Boys and Girls Club. So that's kind of the next decision.
so we're not talking about where it's going to be. We're just deciding if we should apply
Apply
for free
the
money.
grant. Yeah, and I think everybody's in agreement that this is a good program. It seems to be working for numerous counties. I was involved a little bit in Brown County, and it seems to be working up real well up there. That one's actually housed in the state's attorney's office, and it seems like they're saving some money versus, the big issue for us here is having to send these kids to Sioux Falls constantly. So
Well, I would think that it would be an excellent decision to get free money for the county. So I would make a motion to allow the county to make application for the JDAI grant.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Fox, a second by Kettering to approve application to the state for a JDAI program. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. What's the deadline for that application?
June 5th, I believe.
Okay, so, and before June 5th, we need to have our discussion about where the employee resides.
Well, don't we have to wait to see if they give us the money?
I didn't know if it needed to be in the application,
Well,
how
I did,
detailed it was.
I did peruse the application. It did say if it's going to be a current employee, how are you going to differentiate their current responsibilities from their new responsibilities?
Gotcha.
So
Okay. All righty. So we'll continue those discussions over the next June
3
to,
months.
yeah, 3 or 4 months. It's right around the corner. All right. Thank you, Gary, for that.
And Sherry, don't we have a JDI kind of group of people in this? Do they have a meeting scheduled for?
I don't know if we have a next meeting scheduled with the, forgive me, what's the term? Work group, the key, I want to say key
Yeah.
players, but that's not the term they use.
There's a work group of just about 20 people across in different companies across town, but no, currently we do not have another meeting scheduled, but they all have to sign off on this also, so we'll have to schedule one soon.
Yeah, the schools are involved in that. Obviously, the county, the city, et cetera. So the courts. Okay, all righty. Any other questions on that? Item number 9, appoint new planning commission member.
So this go around, we had two applicants, Jay Cutts and Sherry Hoffman, that you need to vote on. And they'll start next week.
And this term is short, correct?
23.
23, okay.
2 years.
Anything you can tell us about Sherry Hoffman?
She's former mayor of Utica.
Okay.
And then she's also sat on the board there. She also is runs a lot of the EM projects that emergency management. She's kind of the head of that group also. So whenever an event happens, she kind of leads the charge on that.
She's been before us. in the
Before
past year.
us or before you?
Before the-
She
Before
served on our,
us.
she served on our ambulance task force last year as a
Okay.
participant there.
and she,
And I think Mr. Cutts was here.
He comes
For
to
the special
meetings
meeting the other
periodically,
day, yeah.
Yep, he was.
Yeah.
Sherry, I was gonna say, I thought represented herself very well when she came in front of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's been pretty active in local government.
What am I gonna do with this? Just for whoever you want,
Oh,
and then just give that to me. And it's just one spot, right?
correct. We will be opening two more spots here in March for the April meeting, since we have two people going off, so.
Jay Cutts. Jay. Sherry. 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 Sherry, 3-2.
Thank you.
All right. Gary, do you want these?
Well, I'd say we go ahead and do commissioner updates because we cannot do Board of Adjustment until 7. Does anyone have an update they'd like to share?
Attended the District 3 meeting. Don was there, Gary was there also. Really nothing to report unless you had something, Gary or Don.
It was pretty short.
Pretty short, yeah.
It was a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, digital meeting this year. Hopefully they want to meet at the next one in Mitchell in person, but they mostly just discuss their budget and they have a couple different new hires that they mentioned, and so there's been a little bit of change there, and Greg announced that, he's looking at probably stepping down in 22 sometime, so there's going to be more change coming down the line, but he just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that, but that was mostly the discussion, was just where they're at right now, how the budget's going, and what kind of projects they're working on, so.
Anything else, Dan? Joe? No?
I don't have a whole lot.
Wanda?
nothing today.
Don?
Attended the Lewis and Clark board meeting this last week. They remain busy. They're looking at the prospects of developing a new hospital or site. Probably out in the area of Cedar Village. YEPG has an important meeting tomorrow. I think they're going to discuss and maybe vote on a merger of YEPG and the chamber. And there's been some discussion on the pros and cons of that. I think that's it.
You got any idea which way it's leaning toward, Don?
I don't know, Dan.
Okay.
If I were to bet, I would bet they would merge.
Okay. Because you think that's beneficial, just to bring
They do a
everybody
lot
under
of
the same.
same things.
Yeah,
They work in the
okay.
same building. And,
Sure.
so
Okay.
So I had sent out to everyone a generic letter of support for their project, and I did a little adding to the letter. If anybody wants to read it, it's here, but I'll sign that and send that in support of their grant application there. It's certainly not just to service Yankton County. It's going to be a regional location to help with mental illness, which is something that has been a hot topic of recent. It's just getting to be where we need those services more and more. We did get an offer from the Attorney General's office to do what they're calling Project Boundary Fence. It is a cybersecurity testing process, and it goes through Dakota State University. I have not went down the path to apply for them to do that. If anybody has any feedback on that, I certainly take that, but the program is for counties and cities. And essentially the Attorney General is recommending that we are testing our cybersecurity. So Dakota State's going to sit out there and try and pierce our veil, if you will, the bubble, and then to tell us where we are maybe at risk. It's free. But like I said, I have not went down the path to start that process to apply for it. So if you are in support of it or against it, send me some feedback via email, and then we'll decide if we do it. Of course, Friday, we have our 9 a.m. Article 5 meeting. We'll either do a 2 or a 3-hour meeting. I would think 2 at minimum. 3 would take us to noon. So I know Don has been having the Planning and Zoning Office put some information together for that meeting, so everybody already has a copy of that. This week, we need to start interviewing for our Director of Equalization. Matt Archer so far is our only applicant for the position, and I think it's wise if we go ahead and interview him. So at least he has started in that process. If all 5 of us want to do it at one time, we could do it on Friday in executive session. If I was applying for a job, I don't know if I'd want to sit down with 5 commissioners all at one time. It might be better if just 2 of us sat down at a time with him and work with each of our schedules. So if you could let me know what works for you this week or maybe first part of next week, we'll try and get 2 at a time to make it more efficient. Let's see. Oh, and Patty already mentioned April 6th, 1 p.m. is the annual ditch meeting. And that is at the Vermillion 4-H Fairgrounds, if anyone is interested in that. I'm assuming we advertise for that in the newspaper so everyone knows, but I know Mr. Frang usually comes to that. So if someone asks you now, you know when the date of that is.
And we do have to have quorum for that.
Yep,
At least 3, yep.
at least 3 of us has to be there.
So you got 3 that can go?
5 can go.
Most
Yeah,
likely,
5 can go. We just need 3.
Most likely I can go. I should put that in right
Most
now.
likely.
I don't know what
I
I'm doing
should
next
be
week,
able to
but
go. I
we're talking-
usually don't
Yeah.
have
we're 2
anything
months
going
out
on.
here.
Well,
I'm pretty flexible.
Well, you should be done planting corn.
if you 3 are going to go, but if somebody gets a
Wanda's going.
Wanda,
Where
okay,
am I going?
to the board meeting?
In
This board?
Vermillion?
Okay, if anybody gets a conflict, give me a call because I'm sure I can go.
Okay,
Did you say April 6th?
There's
April
not,
6th.
no issue with all of us going if we want. We
1
just have a
PM.
minimum of 3. So,
No, you can all go,
so if we all want to go, because it's learning
because it'll be
experience.
scheduled meeting
Yeah.
But
and
we have to make sure we have 3.
advertised.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, they don't like it very much and we don't have a quorum. Then we can't motion
We-
anything.
We collectively sit as the Yankton County Ditch Board. And so we have to have quorum to take action on anything there. So basically, people who pay into, there's like the Yankton clay ditch, the clay ditch, and some laterals, but people who are taxed on that or pay into those ditch districts meet once a year. And so they'll bring forward, we want to clean from here to here and have discussion, and we can approve that at that meeting. Set levies, things of that nature, so.
I did want to mention, and I guess this happened probably a month ago. We did get, there was an open meetings violation filed against 3 of the commissioners in front of you from Mr. Jensen and Mr. Gleich. And that allegation was deemed, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't substantial, so they did not entertain even hearing the allegation, so that was essentially dismissed. And then the last thing I wanted to say, at our last Article 5 meeting, when I asked the public to give feedback to the commission, email, etc., I used the term snail mail, and someone called me on it because they work for the US Postal Service, and they felt it was not an appropriate way to describe the very dedicated service that they provide. So I want to apologize for that. The US mail system is something that I rely heavily on every day. And again, I am sorry that that was offensive. So any other updates? We have 30 minutes before our hearings.
Some of the things I've been keeping an eye out on the legislatures, House Bill 42, which deals with the buffer strips. And I really think that resolution we passed back in December kind of jump-started some of this. And so what House Bill 42 is going to do, basically, this isn't everything, but it's going to allow, instead of yearly applications with equalization, it's going to allow for one time every 10 years and make that the buffer strip bill a lot more user-friendly. And that just today passed out of the Agricultural National Resources Committee 13-0. And so I think that's a good thing. And we had a small part in that from what I've heard. So it's a good thing.
They also increased from 50% to 60%, didn't they?
I'm not sure on that.
I think they
I haven't
boosted
read, it might have been originally that. I
credit.
haven't read what happened today, but it was, the big thing was the 1 year to 10 year. And so I think that's going to get a lot more applicants for that. So.
There's some legislation out there about land valuation again. That is very concerning. So as that goes through the process, we may need to make our voices known. The committee it sits in right now, we don't have any of our local legislators on. So as that passes through, I'll let you know if we need to make our voices heard a little stronger on that one.
You know which bill that is off the top of your head?
Is it 1099? Just a second.
I got time.
You got time? Yeah, we have time. Let's see. Yep, it's 1099. It's, yeah. And then there was another bill out there too that. Oh. I've got the whole list at home.
1085.
Oh, no, I'm not seeing it. 1162 and 1099. They both are concerned with ag land valuations and things, so. Well, we can recess for 30 minutes, or we can't really make any decisions because nothing else is on the agenda. Any items for next meeting? By next meeting, we probably need to know who's going to go to the state meeting in March, which is the 16th and 17th, so Patty can make reservations. And then we've got a commission meeting.
You mean the next regular meeting?
Yeah, the next regular meeting. Correct. Thank you. So think about that, check your calendars, and
Because then we'll have to change the meeting.
I'm probably going to go in March. It's good training.
so that'll be on, but otherwise,
Joe, are you thinking of going?
I'm thinking of it.
Wanda,
What?
are you thinking of going?
I'm thinking, but I didn't bring my calendar, so I can't give an affirmative answer. I have time, I suppose I could run get it.
No.
Got a calendar on here.
My schedule
Yeah, no.
relies on when vaccines.
I have a real
are being
calendar
given.
that changes month by day by day.
There's always something to learn, and it's good to meet with and talk with other commissioners, because sometimes we think we're dealing with all this stuff in Yankton County, and every other county is dealing with similar things. And it's a good idea to learn from them and learn what works and what doesn't work. And
At our last meeting where we talked about planning and zoning, there was a discussion about how Yankton County is such a unique county. Well, we aren't, you know. There's tourism in Watertown, there's tourism in Sioux Falls, there's tourism in
Mitchell.
Mitchell, and it's not a unique county. We're pretty similar to the rest of the state.
I'm sure there's gonna be discussions at that training, but for next meeting or some meeting, maybe a special meeting too, I don't know, but at some point, we're gonna have some discussions on legalization of marijuana. I know the city's moving forward. I think they hired that consulting firm. They're having discussions. I don't know if it makes sense to one of us to kind of be in discussions with the city. I think it's gonna be important that we're on the same page to an extent.
Actually, Ross Denherter contacted me about potentially getting on the same page so that we can maximize our efforts. However, it doesn't look like it's going to happen by July 1 of this year. Because,
Which puts it off for another year, right?
yeah, basically because of the lawsuit that was filed. Last Wednesday, there were 3 hours of arguments between the proponents of the marijuana bill, the folks who are against the marijuana bill, and the interveners, who are the people who apparently wrote the marijuana bill. And judge took it under advisement, and no matter what happens, they've all said they're going to appeal. So, and that's usually 12 months to 18 months to get a decision.
So does that mean it's the Wild West July 1st or nothing happens July 1st?
I would think nothing happens July 1st, but we could ask the Attorney General for an opinion on that. I'm sure there's a large group of people anticipating July 1.
Now, that won't impact the medical though, correct? That's not being appealed though.
That doesn't seem to be being appealed, but I wasn't at the argument, so I don't know what they really argued.
It's my understanding,
And I don't know what,
is they're not challenging the initiated measure.
Okay.
They're challenging the constitutional amendment.
Amendment A.
Yeah.
So Wanda's the city, are they trying to do something like a conditional use permit for that or for marijuana sales, or are they just hiring a,
You mean the
Consultant.
city?
the city? Yeah.
Oh,
I
this,
know you-
the city is talking about, and they've hired a gentleman from Denver to assist them because he's helped apparently,
Sure.
or has the ability to carry
Mhm.
those laws to Yankton County. A way of giving out licenses and making sure that they're taxed.
Okay.
Their fear is that, according to Mr. Denherter, that if the city and the county don't work together, they'll say, for example, you can have 5 marijuana dispensaries in Yankton. I don't know how many, but let's say 5. And then there'll be 35 out in the county. And then they won't get their fair share of sales tax.
You know, another resource with that would be the Public Assurance Alliance. Gary, were you on that call that we had last year of where they were talking through that? And I think they were kind of leaning toward recommending that there at least a conditional use. But that's, could be subject to change, but they had a pretty good conference on that.
All right. I should say too, the convention this year is in Rapid City. I've got motel rooms for that too, so you just have to let me know if you're going or not going so I can cancel.
Is that September?
Uh-huh.
Don, I spoke with Gary too. I think we should take the Pennington County commissioners up on the tour of the care facility that they have out there. Why we're there, I think it'd be worthwhile to see that.
Well, I would entertain a motion to recess until 7 if.
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Healy, second by Clemish to recess until 7 o'clock. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are now recessed.
Closed lot 16.
Everybody turn your microphones on, please. All right, it is 7 o'clock. I'd entertain a motion to come back into regular session.
I'd move that we go back into regular session.
Second.
I have a motion by Fox, second by Kettering to go back into regular session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. We are now back in regular session. Now I would entertain a motion to go into Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Kettering, second by Fox to go into Board of Adjustment. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 5-0. We are now sitting as Board of Adjustment. Item number 10 is Doug Marquardt's application for a conditional use permit. Would you please come forward? We'll let you speak, explain your project, then we'll have some public comment, and then the commission will make a decision. So you have the floor, sir.
Okay, I am applying today for CUP for a commercial truck, pardon me, for a commercial wash at my current location, my current building. And have been, it's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I believe that's where I'm at.
And that's at the old Jodine's
That's at the building. south.
location. Yeah.
Correct, yep, up at the truck shop north of town, south of the truck stop.
Okay. So this will be in your current building. You're not adding on.
Correct.
Okay. And are there any other questions for Mr. Marquardt?
Your truck wash, that's what it's gonna be?
A wash for someone that needs a truck, a tractor, something of that nature, washed, a camper, perhaps.
Okay, so it's the outside of the units, not the contents of the units. Like an oil truck, you're not going to be washing out
I'm
the
not-
inside.
Yeah, the drains drain into the lagoon out back, so I cannot, I'm not going to damage my own property by putting any kind of oil in the back there or anything like that. I currently have one bay that I use strictly for washing, and there's no oil or any kind of lubricants or anything like that that's dumped into that drain system.
Okay, so you currently wash your own trucks. This is just a business to wash other people's trucks.
Correct. There's
Okay, I
definitely-
just want to make sure the public understands you're not washing the insides of hazardous carriers or something down the drain.
Not washing, there's no waste or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll have you sit down for now. Would anyone care to make a public comment on the Marquardt application? There being no comments, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the commission for review.
Yeah, I remember when this came forward prior to this, it's been about a year and a half ago. One of the concerns I have is with this lagoon was designed for an office type setting. And I don't see the same paperwork here that we did have, but my concern is this lagoon going to handle a commercial truck wash? Because I don't think it was designed for that. It was designed for an office type setting.
Doug, did you want to address that at all? Have you talked to the state about your plans? Are they going to require additional testing, et
This
cetera?
has been discussed here last week, or pardon me, last month at the Planning and Zoning meeting. It was unanimously approved. Gary, would you like to speak on what the state findings were?
So DENR actually called me before the meeting last month, and they stated they didn't have any issue with this project and the lagoon. The only time they'd be stepping in is if there was issues or if there's discharge or something, so.
There's an emergency, I don't know I can't remember the exact terminology, but there's an emergency permitting process to go through some things. If there was ever, I think the DENR gentleman's example was 18 inches of rain in one day, that it's a simple process, just basically a plan, what if plan. And I am in the process of getting information for that from the state. I don't expect this to become a Blue Beacon truck wash or any kind of other large commercial truck wash that there is in Sioux City or Sioux Falls. There is no facility in our area to wash trucks that are dirty.
Emergency discharge plan, something like that.
Something like that. The DENR stated that as long as the water did not go over the banks, basically I would not hear from them. However, if it did go over the banks, then we're going to have a serious problem. Okay. Understand that.
Any other questions for the applicant before we step through all of these?
Is this gonna be for trucks, obviously, and then trailers as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Going west, I believe the closest truck wash is Wagner, and going east, you've got Sioux City and Sioux Falls. And there's certainly, I believe there's certainly a need for this service here in our town.
Other questions? You may sit down for now. So stepping through the findings of fact from the Planning Commission, ingress and egress exists because he currently has a business in this location. Off right-of-way parking and loading areas, no change to the exterior of the structure or parking. So those they deem to be fine. Refuse and service areas are present. Utilities are available. There will be no additional screening and buffering as this business will be contained in a current building. Signs will be requested through permit if they need it, which you might if you're gonna add to your signs. Required yards exist. General compatibility with adjacent properties will not adversely affect the public interest. So any other questions, concerns we need to address in those items?
I believe there's a conditional use permit for this facility back from 2012 when this place was built. And one of the requirements the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment put on that is that this was a DENR permitted facility. And I don't see any of that, the old conditional use permit in with the new conditional use permit in this one. So I'm just wondering how the two are going to go together. Because there already is a conditional use permit for the lagoon that's separate from this.
So since you brought it up, I'm assuming you've read that and you
I-
understand what the requirements are.
I have seen it. I don't have it in front of me though.
So what are you asking for now?
There's a conditional use permit for the lagoon, and now we're gonna potentially give a conditional use permit for the truck wash. Okay, on the lagoon, the conditional use permit was gonna have as a requirement of DENR. And as one of the conditions, it was for the office personnel only. And now we're gonna give another conditional use permit for a washing operation, which I'm fine with. But my concern is this gonna be able to handle the additional water? That's my concern. If it can, great.
Okay,
Right.
so you've talked to DNR. Come back to the,
The engineering plans that I saw from 2012 said, yeah, this was engineered for 100 people in an office. And I know DENR says if it doesn't go over, we don't have a problem. But DENR is not looking at the engineering of this, are they?
I don't know.
Well-
You can probably answer that question because you
My
reviewed the
my guess
CUP.
would be they have not. And if we're gonna prove it, that's fine, but I think we should have the other information this was permitted in 2012, so we have the complete packet. That's my concern.
So go ahead, Doug.
I did speak, I believe, with three gentlemen up at the DENR, two of which were in the old Joe Dean's building, or used to eat there and knew exactly where I was talking about. I did invite one of them to stop by if he came through town. I certainly understand. Originally, we had planned on many office people, and we still have several office people, but people are coming, people are going. Didn't actually expect the need 8 years ago, 9 years ago now for something like this, but our needs have changed. And I obviously do not want to create any spillage or anything like that coming out of that lagoon. If we get 3 or 4 trucks in a week, or 10 trucks a week, we're currently doing our own trailers, washing them, and if the water levels rise, We currently have to leave the well on right now or several days a month to maintain our water level. And if the thing gets fuller than it needs to be, then we need to transport it out of there. And I talked to the DENR about the transport regulations and things like that as well.
So do you have a current permit with them for this lagoon
Well,
per se? I mean, so who held the 2012 CUP? Was that Jodine's or was that you?
I do not know. I poked around a little bit at my office and did not come across that file. I certainly can, but I'm not aware of where that's at.
Commissioner Clemish, do you know the answer?
I believe we have a copy upstairs, do we not?
Yes. Commissioner Clemish did drop that off the other day, and so we have a copy of that. My understanding is that DNR looks at the history also, but yeah, I don't know why, I can't answer why that may or may not have been looked at for this project.
So whose name's on the CUP? Anybody, I guess. I've not seen it. So if we've got a copy of a CUP, there's got to be a name on it. I guess that's what I'm going for.
All I'm going off of is what the DENR told me after the planning and zoning folks told me that I need to get some information from Pierre of where I stand.
Okay.
And,
And when you discussed with them, they're aware of the change to the product or what your use now was going to be.
they classify that as a car wash materials or something of that nature. So that fits into a category, I guess, and they had no problem with that at all.
I saw a picture of it, Doug, I think sometime in the last 3 months. And it appeared that part of that lagoon was filling in with dirt. Looked like dirt was above the water out in the lagoon. Is that accurate or?
That could have been a low water level, perhaps. I guess I don't watch it overly close. I've got a couple people in my shop that are in charge of making sure the water level is in there, and I believe there's some items that some pellets that we have to put in there yearly or something of that nature.
Any other concerns beyond the lagoon?
No, just to refresh my memory, we rezoned this recently, and then with that issued a CUP for the truck terminal, correct?
Did we ever issue a CUP for the truck terminal? I don't know if we did.
I think it was, my recollection is it was approved conditionally on the rezone.
I don't remember that.
So Dan, are you asking for some condition being placed on this?
Not at this point.
So it's just an awareness?
You know, at some of these meetings we've had, there has been concern, you know, especially from farmers about human waste being spread on. They complain that they have rules that they have to follow, and then when human waste is spread, there are no rules. I guess what are we doing with the waste with this when it does fill up? Do you have a field that's spread on close by? Is it hauled? What's done with it?
Well, I'm only assuming because I don't have the extra business in operation at this time, but talking to the DENR, I alerted them of there's 25 people, I believe was the number I used, that work there on a daily basis. Some are in, some are out, and there is human waste that goes into the lagoon, and they double checked and had me on hold for a few minutes and came back and said that they were fine with that because of the additional water coming out of the truck, the wash bay per se.
I guess, when we're washing trailers, some trailers have quite a bit of waste in them as well. So that's gonna be going in there. So there's a potential for, more going in than what is going in now.
So I spoke with the DENR about a tanker trailer of some sort if needed, pumping the water off the top and transporting it to a farm field. I explained to them we have farm ground in the area, and they advised me that I'm not allowed to put that in any kind of water source, stream, or anything like that. It's got to be into a field per se.
Do you have is there like a nutrient management plan you have to follow with DENR for that?
No, there is not.
Okay.
They referred to the car wash example several times.
So this is from December 11th, 2012, the Planning Commission. This is not the Board of Adjustment, but it is for Doug Marquardt, and it was approved. It looks like one person voted against it, the rest were for. Commission recommends approving granting of the conditional use permit with the following conditions. The aquifer information must be provided before the Board of Adjustment meeting. No commercial activity, including outside entities dumping into the lagoon. Facility operate under regulations of the South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. All new business requires conditional use permit. Installation of holding tank for industrial wastewater. Fence around the lagoon to the South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resource standards. So those are the conditions placed. Use is compatible.
Gary, did
Vote.
we issue him a conditional use for a truck terminal after the rezone or not? Because my recollection is we just did the rezone, but we have not issued a conditional use permit for the truck terminal yet. I could be mistaken.
Okay. So, given those conditions, we are allowed to all new business requires conditional use permit, and you are here for a conditional use permit for this new business.
Correct.
Okay, did you put a fence around this?
There's been a fence around it since 2012. There's no trespassing signs, I believe. I had one of the gentlemen in my shop go look here 6 months ago to make sure that there were signs that were legible because someone had commented they were fading.
Okay. And you are operating under the regulations of the DENR.
Correct. To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay,
If you go out and look at that, you will not see a skim, or I don't believe you'll see any evidence that there's an oily surface or anything like that out there.
So Doug, as the pool increases in volume, where would you see the point that you would think, gee, I better go out and haul some water off? Because I don't think you can do it in a couple trips. It would take a significant amount of water or trips to lower it at 1 foot.
Certainly. So assuming that I get that much business, Commissioner Kettering, I'd be happy to purchase some kind of a tanker trailer and pump it out of there. Our pressure washer is 4 gallons per minute. For some things, that's for many cleanings, that is just fine. Most trailer washes are going to take an hour, give or take, depending on the dirty or the surface area you've got to cover. So that's just doing the math. We've got a large lagoon that I don't know how many trailer washes that would take to fill it. but at some point, we'd have to make arrangements to pump it into a trailer and move it to a different facility, move it to a different field.
I was just wondering if we couldn't resolve some of the concern over an overflow in the pond by putting a depth requirement on the pond. I mean, from the water level to the top of the reservoir.
I'd be happy to do what I need to do. I'm not sure what the answer is to go about that.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to come back in 60 days and report that I've had 10 people call me or 50 people call me. I have no idea. The fact that we have to have that well running a few days a month nonstop, that's a lot of
Evaporation,
water
right?
that's going in that. It's like a 3-inch tube or something like that. That's a lot of water going in there.
Okay, so there's also in here a project summary by a professional engineer from McClory Engineering when you did your
point.
work on doing this pond, so. So by coming before us to get a conditional use for this additional business, you are essentially meeting the requirements that were set forth by the planning commission back then. Anybody else want to look at this? Commissioner Clemish, did you have any further requests?
I do not. Well, I guess one thing we've heard over and over from, our producers is that when they apply manure, they have to follow rules. And then when other people, they don't have to follow them. Are we going to have any type of rules for MDER? Doesn't have any apparently for application of this.
So you're talking when it's dredged
Well,
and
when
applied?
it's dredged and applied.
Have you ever had it dredged and applied?
No, we have not.
I believe
Okay.
you get a permit when you dredge them.
So usually you'll hire
not sure.
somebody to do that and they are required to, we get our septic tanks sucked out every year and the gentleman is required to treat it before he applies it. Is that what you're wanting? That when it does get cleaned out, it has to be done by a professional cleaning service? He can't just go out and.
I'm just bringing up the concerns that we've heard over the last
And I'm,
few weeks, and I don't necessarily have a concern about it, but this is certainly quite a bit bigger than your septic tank. This is a lagoon. And we might never have problems, but I think we should have a plan in place. For the
and that's what I'm trying to
application
get
of
to,
this.
Commissioner Clemish, is what is your plan? What are you asking
I'm
for?
asking what the board would like to see. I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan here. If you had something you'd like to suggest, go ahead.
Well, certainly, I think if you're going to clean it out, you need to have it done by a professional service. And then they are required to follow state guidelines for the application of human waste.
I'd be happy to come back in 60 or 90 days or 6 months and just to give an update of how much additional water we're putting in there, if I can try to keep track of that.
Eh,
And I
Go
don't,
ahead.
sorry, I don't think that what I'm gathering, the concern is necessarily the additional water or concern with overflow. It's at some day when the solids need to be removed from the lagoon. You know, what would be the method to remove the solids, I think, is that what I'm gathering?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
so.
field application and, yeah.
So we can certainly put that condition on, is when it needs to be cleaned out, it's done by
When it
an
needs to
approved
be-
service.
When it needs to be dredged.
Mhm.
When yeah, so you're not out there with your backhoe,
Your front end
throwing it
loader.
in a dump truck and
Gotcha.
dumping it somewhere.
Fair deal.
Okay, so we can certainly put that condition on if everyone is good with that. Any other conditions that need to be placed on this? So if anyone makes a motion, please have that as part of the conditions, that dredging of the lagoon needs to be done by a certified septic
Handler.
sucking service, if you will. I'm not sure exactly what the proper term should be, but something to that length.
I guess my other question is we're giving them a conditional use for a truck wash. Am I missing it or is that in 1007? We have truck terminals, but I mean, we don't have truck washes. Maybe it's just an error. I mean, are they given a classification of unlisted uses? Is that what we're doing? And if that's the case, that's fine.
Well, it's listed as truck or equipment terminals. And I guess I would consider this a truck terminal.
If you look at the section, though, that's being applied at section 1009, classification of unlisted uses.
And we've used 1009 in past histories to permit items we felt were in alignment with conditional uses listed, but not specific. Any commissioners have any other concern with Commissioner Clemish's last statement?
No, I don't have an issue with it, but if if he doesn't actually have a conditional use for a truck terminal, maybe there's something we could combine and cover him under that as well, because he's going to get a conditional use for a truck wash. He's also operating a truck terminal. He came into us before and asked for a conditional use permit for a truck terminal. We couldn't give it to him because he was zoned rural transitional. He rezoned to commercial just to have him covered, to have him not come in here again. Because a truck wash is different than a truck terminal. I just want to make sure he's covered.
So what do you propose doing?
Give him a truck wash and truck terminal, and so he's covered for both.
I would make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit with the provision that a competent professional
pumping
waste
service or
removal
waste.
service clean the lagoon when it becomes necessary.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit based on findings of fact that we went through, with the additional condition that the lagoon is cleaned out by a professional service. Further discussion? We did. There was no public comment. Yeah, thanks for checking though. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Wanda,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes. You have a conditional use permit. Go ahead.
I had a question in regard to the cleaning. That's for solids, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay, for the,
yes, absolutely.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, item number 11, we have Rikens RV Park conditional use permit. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Attorney Ross Denherter. I'm here on behalf of Riken RV Park, Inc. and its owners, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, who are here behind me. If you have questions I'm unable to answer, they are here to assist. You guys may recall this coming before you in late fall. A conditional use permit came before the Board of Adjustment for a campground lying immediately north of Yankton RV Park, which sits a little to the west of Deer Boulevard and a little to the north of Alphonse Road. That conditional use was granted with a few conditions. However, during that last meeting where this board approved that conditional use permit, there were suggestions that were given to Mr. Evans which he took to heart. Primarily, he desired to reduce the scope of the campground, reducing the northernmost, I believe it's 12 campsites that were in that prior design. However, because those campsites were not going to be developed out, it required a retooling of the site plan. And in order to be careful and make sure that everything was done according to law, an amended CUP application was tendered to the county. The fee has been paid. You see before you the findings of fact following approval by the Planning Commission. I'm happy to go through any of those with you if you have specific questions. I know that there have been some neighborhood objections that are raised, and while I think there is a good explanation for all of those, I don't necessarily want to dive into that unless you guys wish to do so. So I do want to state, though, that based on those objections, there was a considerable amount of time spent meeting with county officials in the planning office to make sure that everything was done according to the prior CUP for the Yankton RV Park, which lies immediately to the south. My understanding is, despite those objections, there has been no formal complaint made to the planning office. However, we did, like I said, go through those objections all the same, and I believe that the planning staff are satisfied that those issues are resolved. I know that when this matter came before this board back in November, there were concerns about compliance with the 2018 conditional use permit for Yankton RV Park. I think through this process, we figured out where the discrepancies lie. A bit of history that kind of brings everything to where we are now. That particular conditional use permit application was originally submitted with 2 drawings. The first drawing was phase 1 and the second drawing was phase 2. And through that process, Mr. Evans was told, no, you can't submit that as 2 separate designs. We need 1 site plan. So a new site plan drawing that combined phase 1 and 2 was submitted. That's what was used for approval by the planning board and approval by the Board of Adjustment. That drawing appears to be missing.
It appears to be what?
Missing. It's gone. It's
Gone?
not in the offices of the planning staff, and there's no good explanation for where it's at. But that's where a lot of the confusion and the accusations that there was non-compliance originated. So I wanted to bring that history to this board's attention because I think it addresses 95% of the complaints that were raised in terms of compliance with that conditional use permit. But having said that, I'm happy to walk through real briefly the changes that are proposed based on the CUP versus the one that's submitted in this amended application. As I indicated, 12 less campsites along the north side that required a retooling of the septic systems. Their sizes and locations had to change. And then the other complaints that largely arose from the last application was the problems that continue with Alphonse Road to the south. This new site plan utilizes a different form of access going to the north. The access point is off Doe, and which runs to the north and then connects with Buck. Buck has just been built, and Mr. Evans will construct Doe to county standards as part of the development of this particular campground, just to make sure that there's good legal access that takes the pressure off of Alphonse Road.
You said, may I ask a question?
Sure.
You said that Buck Road is built?
Buck Road, I understand, is built. That's east to west. It comes off of,
I know where it's at.
okay.
Doesn't look like it's built to me. I just looked at it yesterday.
So all of Buck is built except for the approach. I believe it was last month, they applied for the approach permit and were approved from Mike Slotchek.
The approach and the drainage, the culvert.
Correct. He was required to build a 24-inch or
And you're gonna leave it, it appeared to me it was a dirt surface. You're gonna leave it.
it's gravel. They hauled in gravel.
Since yesterday?
No, there's gravel on it since
Really?
months ago. Correct.
I have to go look at it again.
Okay. Yeah, it's a 24-inch culvert was required for the approach on there and approved from Mike Salach.
I saw the grading, I didn't see the gravel.
Either way, before there is campsites and campers, there's gonna have to be, appropriate county standard roadway access all the way in. And that will be from the north rather than from the south, alleviating pressure on Alphonse Road. So I think that will be good for the neighborhood. Also, to address other concerns of the neighbor lying immediately to the west, if you look in the packet for this particular application on the plat, in the northeast corner of this particular lot, there is a north-south private road easement. There is an open legal question as to whose property benefits from that easement. We're still going to look into that. If we have the right of access to access Riken RV Park Inc.'s new campground, it is anticipated that there will be an access constructed there at some point in the future too. That will further alleviate pressure on both Buck and the new Doe Road and take people further away from Mr. Heine's property to the west. You have to zoom in to see that. It's kind of a,
It goes from Buck Street down to, because this is
Correct.
16, this is lot 16.
yeah, it's the lot further to the south from the one that's on Buck.
Right, okay.
It is anticipated that in the future, if things go according to plan, that there will be further expansion to the north that will encompass that area, but that is not part of this particular CUP application. But it'd be great to have access on the northeast corner too. It's just hard to say who gets those rights at this point.
Can you reach that? Or-
Just a quick update while he's bringing that up. Since that meeting, there has been a formal nuisance complaint that has been filed now.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vetter, you've done some investigating of this. And at this point, there's no evidence that any violation of the CUP is taking place, correct?
Obviously, I didn't survey the property, so that would be what would be needed to for sure know some of the answers to some of those questions that were brought up. But by visual location, it seems to meet the needs and that 16-foot building issue, that actually was done also in 2014 to the Peterson property too. So that's where that came from and was approved from.
Does that ring a bell? I am seeing
I'm
a
not
quizzical
sure
look.
what are you referring to with the 16-foot?
Okay, I can clarify that for you too. There, in the prior CUP application process, there was a question that arose as to the location of a structure. I believe the accusation was the structure was built, quote, in the right of way. However, that's not correct. If you find the survey pins that are out there, that utility building structure is constructed 16 feet from the property line. And while I can't understand exactly why the CUP at that time was approved the way that it was approved with the construction of a utility building being within the 25-foot setback in that zone. In fact, I think that's the front. So I believe the setback is 75 feet, but the CUP was granted with a 16-foot setback. And then there was a building permit that I have a copy of here that authorized the construction of that structure at that location, 16 feet from the lot line. So It was constructed in accordance with the CUP as approved and the building permit. I admit it's a bit of an eyebrow raiser. As Gary indicated, I believe the explanation is there was already a structure located at that site on the neighbor's property further to the east. And that's a common exception to setbacks that I know that the city of Yankton uses too when that sort of situation arises. You're at least in keeping with the neighborhood. But it was constructed according to the CUP, and I have the evidence here if you'd like to take a look at that.
And do you have a survey of where the pins are so we can drive out and look at them?
I believe the pins are currently marked with lay stakes. They're right now, if you were to drive out there, you'd be able to see those.
How many?
I'm thinking all the corners. And it even also marks the right-of-way locations for Doe. So you can see east to west, north to south, where the property boundaries are.
For this track, 16, or are we talking down south?
It's for 16.
Okay. So this track 2 is the current one, that's the previous CUP,
Correct.
Correct.
and that's the one with the,
So one of my biggest issues when I buy new property is knowing where property lines are.
Can you speak up?
I'm sorry. One of my biggest issues.
Madam, it might be better if you don't mind, take off.
Okay. One of my biggest issues with buying new properties.
Now you don't have to.
It's a delicate balance. It's a delicate balance.
I'm sorry. Okay, is this good right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my biggest issues with when I buy properties is to know exactly where the property line is. So when the surveyor does the stakes, they do it with wood lath. And that wood lath breaks in the wind and I lose my property pins and I don't know where my pins are. I have already marked out the north side property pins with metal steel posts. So that does not happen. I did the exact same thing in 2018 with track 2 and put down metal posts. The corner was actually already marked out with a metal post by Whitetail Run, which would be the south.
I've got them all.
Okay, so it would be in between this one right here. Already had a white stake at the pin, a white post. Whitetail Run does the exact same thing that I did. And he also put another one on this property line right here. So this was already marked out, the property line, when I arrived. I put a stake here and a stake here. And then once the purchase agreement went through on January 15th for lot 16, I put another metal stake here and another metal stake here, right next to the wood lath that was already there. And I believe the wood lath is still there. And all of the rest of those lots are all marked out with the wood lath, including Whitetail Run's new development that he has on this one just north of his that has wood lath, marking all of those out.
So explain to me with your little arrow where the road is that's going to be constructed to help the flow.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, so this is the road that was explained to be built with gravel already on it.
The one Don was talking about.
Correct.
Oh.
And this is the approach that goes on to Deer Boulevard. This approach was approved, but it's not built yet. It comes to here, and then Doe Avenue has a 33-foot right-of-way from here all the way up to
To the
Highway
road?
52 up here. And this already has an approach with concrete over the pad. When they redid the bike path over here, they had to do concrete on every approach.
So are you anticipating traffic going one way?
One
Or-
way,
One way or two ways?
two ways. Requirement for road surface for two-way traffic, according to the subdivision standards, is 24 feet. So we'll have a 24-foot road surface. I don't know about north of Buck here yet. But from here, from Buck down to my property here will be a 24-foot road surface in the 33-foot right of way.
So are you responsible for building that section of Doe as well and the lot you do not own?
This section from here to here.
Yes, sir.
So this here, I will build from this point to this point, and this from this point all the way over to here is already built.
So who's building from to the road? To the highway.
From here up, I'm not sure. I'm guessing either Dennis Christensen will delegate that to these people here, or I mean, it's possible at some point in time I could build the rest if those lots don't sell. And I think that's something that I would want to do. I'm not for sure, but the main access will be coming off of Deer Boulevard to Doe and then down.
As I was discussing with you guys earlier, right here where the mouse is, this is where that private roadway easement is. So if there's rights to use it, that's an awfully convenient additional point of access. But
What did you say?
there you go. If these easement rights turn out to be for the benefit of this lot 16, this will also serve as an additional convenient point of access to that campground. It would also take traffic away from Doe, which would make the neighbors very pleased. But we can't commit to that because we don't know if we get the benefit of these rights.
And so, excuse me, you undoubtedly saw Mr. Heine's email because it appears that you responded to a number of points.
Indeed.
One of his issues is that the fences aren't what they're supposed to be.
So that
What are the plans with the fences?
Okay, so the fence that he's referring to is on the southern boundary of Alphonse Road right here. When there was 70-mile-an-hour straight line winds, that was a flat panel fence where the wind cracked off the 4x4s at the concrete footing. That's nature, and now we have frozen ground. So as soon as the ground thaws, the plan will be to replace those concrete footings and those posts and fix the fence. But we find ourselves in the midst of winter. So that's a logistical, seasonal issue that we can easily resolve. So it's a fairly straightforward explanation.
And the two campgrounds are gonna be separate.
Yeah, because the plan is to put the, if you look at the actual site plan in front of you, on the southern boundary, recognizing appropriate setbacks, of course, there is a splash pad that's identified and a pool that will actually have a lazy river connected to it as part of its design. You'll see that in two rectangles on the site plan. The idea is because those are there, it's going to be a higher end amenities. The idea is to treat them as two separate parks. Yeah, come on in.
So when you're licensed through the health department, they require, if you're at different addresses, also they require different campground licenses. These will have two separate campground license. The name of the new park will be.
We are trying to also be mindful of the people at home. So they can't hear as well with
I'm so
masks on.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so through the health department, you're required to have, for each different address, you're required to have different licenses. I have a license at Rikens RV Park. I have a license at Yankton RV Park, and the new park, which would be Paramount RV Park, that will have a separate license also. Everything will be separate. It's like he said, higher amenities, I think Whitetail Run's doing the same thing, just a higher class that really works out to kind of separate things.
Well, I see in your purchase agreement, it says that the road is to be built by the seller.
Correct. That was just Buck. That was required in the purchase agreement, not
Okay.
Doe.
Okay.
And that was by 8/1, but they are definitely way ahead of schedule. So I would guess I'd have to talk to Christensen's. I don't know when that approach will be finished, but like I said, they had it approved, I believe, in December for the approach permit.
Commissioners, you'll recall that the prior CUP approval at the end of last fall contained conditions that included building a fence along the eastern and western boundaries of the property. That will continue forward. The one thing that needs to be pointed out is since the primary access will be Doe, there'll be fences alongside the lots, but where the roadways spill into Doe, that will obviously be openings in the fence. But the roadway will be built to spec. There is room within that 33 feet to get a county spec road constructed. And Mr. Evans has demonstrated his ability to construct roadways to county standards and has done so with the construction that he's taken through this county commission before. The planning and zoning board, planning board added the additional condition of signs directing people to utilize Buck as the primary access, directing people down that roadway. That is an acceptable condition. He will also continue the obligation of building that fence along the western boundary as soon as he's able to do so. I believe the condition on the prior CUP was 1 year. That should be a suitable amount of time. I think typically in these campgrounds, the standard has been getting fences built within 3 years. So it seems to me that's still kind of an appropriate timeline. But I believe that was the way it was phrased in the planning board was soon after the roads are built. So that's a more subjective condition. But I think if you, I mean, that's suitable too. It can be built once the roadways are constructed, but seems to me setting an appropriate time frame of a year is maybe a more objective benchmark. But I just wanted to throw that out there for your consideration. But I guess at this point, I'll just stand for any further questions if you have them. And I would also ask for an opportunity to reply to objections that are raised. I do also have 3 or 4 letters in support that were provided to Mr. Evans. I don't know how you'd like to put these in the record. I can read them or I can just mark them with exhibit stickers. You can pass them around. I'd like to be judicious with your time, but
That'd be fine.
I would be happy to look at them.
okay. I'll just mark them as A through D respectively.
So during the planning meeting discussion, I did have a chance to review that video. And it was stated that the septic system will be installed by a licensed installer. Is that correct? I don't want to misstate anything. Mr. Denherter stated it at the planning commission meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if he did or not, but they will be installed by LaCroix Construction, which is licensed.
Okay, because I didn't see that as part of the conditions that it had to be a licensed septic installer.
Okay, I have no
And that you were
problem.
going to get Department of Health approval for the pool, and you've stated that, and I didn't see that as a condition in here. So I do believe we need to make sure that's included in the record. Your plan did show 25-foot setback for the pool house. That is on your drawing. Drainage plan, it was stated there is a drainage plan, but I don't see, and I never saw it discussed as to where all the water is going to go off this property.
Okay, so the water right now, it's kind of like a pyramid, pretty much. So some of it drains off towards Heine's, and then it's probably about a halfway mark. Some of it drains off towards the
Southeast corner.
Doe Drive ditch that would be there. And then there's a slope in the corner that has drained towards my current RV park that I have. And then the other pitch of it goes towards the lot 16, which would be north of the property. For the most part, it's pretty flat, but it does drain in almost all directions.
Okay, so I guess that's my concern is when we get a 3-inch rain, where's the water gonna go?
To the ditch and everywhere. I'm not going to change anything. It's going to go in
Which ditch though?
all ditches that it goes to. So I'm not changing anything. So what I don't want to do is say the rain's obviously been good. The drainage is good how it is right now, as far as I know. So if I direct it, if I slope it one way or slope it the other way, that it hasn't been doing for the last 100 years or however long it's been that way. I don't want to put water, say, on Heine's property that's not supposed to be there, just as I don't want to put it on Whitetail's property or mine or anybody else's. So I'll create proper drainage ditches, just like I did on Alphonse Road. I dug out that whole ditch to spec, and it will drain properly to Deer Boulevard and then down from there. But I do not want to change any of the water drainage.
Worth pointing out, commissioners, is because there has been drainage issues in the past, and particularly along the southern boundary of Track 2 where Yankton RV Park is now, there was significant drainage issues. So when the overall subdivision plan was first presented, the drainage was addressed at that time. I believe Mr. Vetter can confirm this. So the engineering and the site was already played with to address that issue. So when he's saying he's not going to do anything to it, he's not going to mess with the grading that was already done to make sure that that drainage plan was properly effective. He's already personally experienced the problems associated with not having one with that prior Track 2. So I believe that issue was addressed as part of the approval of the plat and the subdivision design.
All right. Any other questions from commissioners before I open it up for public comment? So public comment is about the conditional use permit in front of us tonight, which is for lot 16, brand new campground. I understand there's a lot of concerns, and we have already talked a lot about Track 2, which is the current campground, but we do want to try to focus our discussion on the conditional use before us tonight, and concerns with the previous campground. There's already been some complaints filed on that. There is a process with which to go through that, and that will be another venue. So at this time, would anyone like to make a public comment? Come on up and please state your name for the record.
And preferably take off your mask.
Hello, I'm Ryan Heine from 6th Meridian Hop Farm, neighbor to Yankton RV and this new development. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let me just start off this critique with Doe Avenue is not fully platted. It's a 33-foot easement. A normal road gets 66 feet of easement, usually on both sides. There is no easement on the west side of that property, on my property or to the property to the north, all the way to the highway. It's 33 feet and that's it. Now on the other side of the property, he has 66 feet. Why is he trying to force it over onto this 33 feet? What is he gaining? I think he has the cart before the horse here. He should probably figure out these roads a little bit more before coming up here with a plan that may or may not be done this way or that way, depending on if we can figure out some things that we haven't answered yet. He speaks of being able to build roads. I don't know of any road he has built on county spec roads. He's built these roads that are internal to his park. In fact, we've been on him about building Alphonse Road, and that's not a county spec road. I spoke to Deerfield Equipment yesterday. I had a great sit-down conversation with them. From their understanding that Evans does have access to that easement. And, you know, they are not building any roads outside of Buck Street. Previously in these chambers, he said that he's
Outside of what street?
outside of Buck Street. Buck Street is the only road they're building. That is slated to be done in August of 2021. That's where they're thinking. It is only a dirt surface. I live right next to it. I look out on it from my window. It's only a dirt surface. They've done the initial grading. They have a lot of material to bring in yet. So that's not going to be done until August of 2021. That's the timeline. That's what we got to work with here. Matt's promising people to move in May of 2021. That means he's going to be moving people in without a road. This means he's also going to be building without a road. So therefore, how is he accessing his property in the meantime? It's really all coming up to the south on Alphonse Road, which is underbuilt and he has refused to pay maintenance on and all these other things. And the last final point is there is no road maintenance agreement yet for Buck Street. There's nothing signed, nothing set down. And this is how we started off with Alphonse Road. It's sounding like another mess like this. You know, we've sitting here 3 years trying to get this road to be nice and we're still struggling. This sounds like Alphonse Road all over again. Alphonse Road started off when one person wanted to build on 33 feet off to the center and keep it all to themselves. And they start building a road kind of wonky. And then there's questions of, you know, who has easement, who has access and all these other things. Next thing you know, you have two roads trying to be put side by side to each other or this or that. This whole situation with Doe Avenue looks like Alphonse Road mess, part 2. Not to mention the layout of the park has no internal loops in the park. They all come right out onto Doe Avenue. That means that road is completely servicing his park. It is really his own private road. Now, if he wants to put a private road there, I have no problem with that. But I want the fence on the west side of that road so that it actually provides real screening from all of his ingress and egress traffic. And that's all all I asked for. And that's what really happens here is when he moves that, he wants to move that over where he has a bunch of gaps. Well, you look along Alphonse Road, that's not real screening. We have to deal with all the loop around traffic of his park every summer. So that's where it's very frustrating. I don't know how he's going to build a road on 33 feet. I'm an electrical engineer.
I'm sorry?
I'm an electrical engineer, but I look at the math and it doesn't add up. 24 foot of hard surface plus a 41 ditching on each side, which he's going to have significant ditching because he does have, I mean, anywhere down there, it's drainage problems. You know, we solve our drainage problems by pushing it off and making little pools on our property. No, but I guess, you know, you can't take my word for it. You can't take Mr. Evans' word for it. I think what we really need to have is maybe the county road superintendent come down here and take a look and say, can you build a road on 33 feet? Do we have his answer? You know, person who's actually in charge of public right-of-ways in this county. And it's really kind of crazy that he wants to go through all this work of building up all these extra separate roads and maintain them, because he's going to have to maintain them, yet he still refuses to put any effort into the road that it shares with us. It's been very frustrating. We've been dealing with this for years. This is the third complaint I've put in. I'm hoping I get a response on this one. And our backs are kind of to the wall in this whole situation, because if he puts in this road the way he wants to, it kind of forces our venue to close for this summer, because we're going to have to completely reconfigure everything. And a simple fence would have probably alleviated a lot of that. And that's exactly what we negotiated in the original CUP last time. So I really implore you to just reject this and let the original CUP stand. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Any other public comments?
Louis Johnson, Ballin. I have an issue with the 33-foot right of way and a 24-foot top for the simple fact that it won't work. I mean, if you don't build the grade up at all and just put gravel on top of the ground, yeah, you can probably get by with it. But with the 24-foot top and a 33-foot wire weight, you would have and a half. You would have from here, from the edge of the road to the fence on the property line. If you have a 4-to-1 slope, you take a foot of dirt out of the ditch, put it on top of the road. There'll be 2 foot of difference between the bottom of the ditch and the top of the road. And a 4-to-1 gets you over to here. You don't have enough room for the slope. And a 4-to-1 slope, I believe, on the edge of a road is legal. And I've done somewhere between 8 and 12 miles of roads and developments out there. And let me tell you, there is very, very, very few places you can get a 24-foot top into a 33-foot space. I've seen places where the base of the road was 70 foot wide in order to end up with it. That was a 20-foot top on that one. I have issues with that, and I can see the county opening themselves up for a ton of lawsuits for anybody that comes behind. Because if you grant one person the right to build a road in 33 feet, I'm going to do development. Why the hell do I want to take 60 feet out or 66 feet out of my property that I could sell to somebody? So they're going to take you to court. And I think the county spent enough money on lawsuits because of rules that were in place that were not followed. And I do have to agree, if that road has been gravelled, I don't believe it's 4 inches thick. I don't know if there's 7 grains per 100 feet on it. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
So are you saying in order for that road to be adequate to service that area, it has to be 66 feet wide?
I'm not going to say it has to be 66 foot wide.
But 33 not?
33, no. It just doesn't work because by the time you put the radiuses in for the driveways, if you have a 45-foot radius, and the county has very strict rules on approaches and on right-of-ways and on setbacks. And I installed an approach for a business, and that had to have a 40-foot top. And it ended up being closer to 50 foot or better on top to make everything work right. Granted, that was for semi-traffic, but okay, for that person to be in business, he had to have a 40-foot top. I wanted to put a field driveway in. I was required to put in a 40-foot top. And it's like, wait a minute. And that was just to go in and out of the field. And we can do this for a commercial area where you're gonna have a whole lot more traffic. I just see you're just asking for trouble. To me, it's a lawsuit just waiting on the sidelines. Because if you don't have the 66-foot right of way, because that's what it is in the rest of the county. I don't want mean to pick on anybody, but if it's fair for one person, it's fair for everyone.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That was my question.
Thanks. Other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Matt Rumsey, just a registered voter here in Yankton County. And I would just like to stand in support of Mr. Heine because his hops got my attention. And I would look forward to a nice night out at that place. And I felt bad we didn't get it done this summer and plan on doing it next summer. And I think if you sit and think about sitting out on the deck, and I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going around. I think looking at a fence would be a lot nicer than looking at a road that's going in and out and a lot of traffic. So, and I reserve any time I have left, if possible, to Mr. Heine if he has any other points he'd like to make.
Thank you.
I had forgotten about this one last small detail, and it concerns me quite a bit because this CUP has a very large impact whether we're going to be able to open this year, simply because after being closed last year from the pandemic and everything, resources are pretty thin, and we have to try to build some type of screening, it's just going to deplete us. And so it's really it's really weighs heavy on us on whether or not we're going to be able to open our venue this year. And one of the things last year that was really painful was when we were doing a review of our social media and found a negative review on Google. Found it actually in about May of 2020. It's from Commissioner Clemish, who gave us a 1-star review.
Commissioner Clemish?
Commissioner Clemish, yes. Gave us a 1-star review with no response. And I reached out to him. I didn't get a response. I just still don't know exactly why he gave us a 1-star review online.
Because you had lipstick all over your beer glasses. And if you'd wash your glasses, you would have got the review.
That would be interesting because you haven't been there,
Yes,
as far as I know,
Yes, I have.
other than 2016. And it would have been nice if you would have actually responded. Okay. But instead, you just gave a 1-star review and never gave us a chance to ever make our venue better.
You
I think
emailed
it's
me
very-
and asked me to remove it, and I did.
I do think it was very unbecoming of a county commissioner to do something like this to a local business.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would some of your apprehension and discontent be alleviated if there was a fence on, I don't know which road it is, the one that goes north and south on Mr. Evans' property so that you don't see his traffic coming and going?
It would help us a lot. It's not just, seeing his traffic coming and going, but also controlling the traffic that like to just walk over. Last year, we had some people who also wanted to just bring coolers over and have picnics on our property, essentially trying to take free advantage of our venue. So it would be also really just convenient.
I mean,
to have
would that satisfy your
That satisfied
concern?
That satisfied me in the last CUP as well. But I still do also have the concern about the 33-foot easement and the road, simply because.
Well, that's what
I
I'm saying.
know,
If you
yeah.
built the fence and the road's on his side of the
Yeah.
fence.
Because then it's no longer a public road. It's really just his own private little road, and that's it. So,
Well, if he's going to build a road and it's going to intersect somewhere down the road, I mean, wouldn't it make your life easier?
I'm not quite getting what you're getting at there. Like if he's gonna build a road and it's gonna intersect,
Well, he said he's going to build a road,
yeah, yeah.
and he wants to build a road that's 33 feet wide.
Mhm.
And Mr. Johnson says you can't build a road out there 33 feet
Mhm.
wide and it won't work.
Yeah,
So if he built a road put up a fence on the edge of his lot and then built a road, would that work for you?
well, other than the concerns of him trying to have this public right of way that's built off center and on 33 feet easement, that's a little concerning. And just simply because that's exactly the same type of situation that created the mess that we have with Alphonse Road. And so that's in the sense of looking at planning into the future, maybe after I'm gone, because this saga of how the Alphonse Road evolved into this mess. I mean, that road has been there for 130 years, but the saga really of how it got so wonky started, 40 years ago. So.
All right.
So, just trying to prevent those things. But
One,
No, go ahead.
one thought that keeps coming back to me is if the two of you would have a mutual agreement to have the property surveyed, so we know exactly where the pins are, so we know exactly where the roads might go. To me, when I've done real estate transactions, you go out and you find a pin.
Mhm.
You don't find a stake somebody drove in the ground. You find a pin in the ground. Now, maybe that's only in the situations I've been involved in, but it just appears to me that if everybody knew exactly where the lines were and said, we agree to this, there should be able to be a resolution.
yes, there should be a resolution, but in my last 3 years of dealing with Mr. Evans, that resolution better be very well defined out on paper.
And so I think I went out and traveled the road with Mr. Heine yesterday, and I think where that one orange stake was probably the one corner line.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
And then you indicated you thought the east stake was maybe in the center of Deer Boulevard.
Yeah, back in 2014, when Peterson had his property built, and this is also when we hatched our plans for this hop farm, we had the pins found to make sure that we had the right boundaries. And I do recall pretty closely to where that pin was located a pin was located on the pavement of the road.
You remember it to be one place, Matt remembers it to be another
Mhm.
place. Let's get a survey out and find out what the heck the thing is, and that's a basis to start going forward, I think.
Yep,
And
and I have discussed that with some people already about getting a full survey done.
Yep, and part of that is the resolution to the complaint you filed,
Mhm.
which will be handled separately than the CUP tonight.
Yes.
So some of that discussion needs to be in another venue.
Yes.
So this time, we need to continue taking public comment.
Mhm.
So thank
Yes.
you
All right.
for your time. Any other public comments, please come forward.
I'm pretty soft, so I'll just take the mask off. I'm Sherry Peterson. My husband Aaron and I own Whitetail Run, neighbors to the east of Matt. And we're fully in support of the original CUP with the roads that we've been discussing this evening, coming in off of the north, alleviating that extra traffic. As Matt shared, as Ryan has shared, this is an area with drainage issues. So we really do need to make sure that there is an adequate ditch that is able to drain and to handle that water. We've all been affected by the torrential rains of Yankton County over the past few years. And so, those are definitely things that we want to make sure happen correctly as well. For the use, and we're all putting a ton of money into this property. and we want it to be in good shape. I would say the other thing, as I've been listening, I heard Matt talk about being licensed with the state of South Dakota, the Department of Health. And we are, and I highly recommend that. Having a pool, having that number of bodies that are constantly in that pool. There was an occasion that we had a pump that wasn't working correctly. And without taking a water sample in to the hospital that gets delivered to Pier every week, we wouldn't have been aware of that bacterial that was growing, and we could have had a significant issue with a lot of people getting ill. So, that's just something that we strongly believe in and firmly think that anyone that's going to have something that is a community type of recreation area should definitely have that level of licensure in place. So we are glad to be business owners here in Yankton County and looking forward to hopefully getting all of this resolved so everyone can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hello, my name is Lindsay Leonard, and I'm here on behalf of Stringer's Bar and Grill and TJ's Mini Mart. So with Matt having his RV park across the way, it's definitely brought in a lot of business for TJ's and Stringer's, especially with this pandemic that we went through this last summer and continue to go through. But it did bring a lot of business in for our TJ's and Stringer's. Matt has been a great neighbor. I guess we haven't had really a lot of complaints from him or about him. I don't know, I think it's a great thing that he's trying to do to help build our community out by the lake. And I guess as long as the right steps are taken to do this, I'm all for it. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Other comments? All right. There being none, public comment is now closed. We bring it back to the commissioners for final discussion.
Could we have a brief opportunity
You
to
bet.
address the concerns that
Yep.
were raised? Okay, so I
Mask.
wrote these down. Oh, thank you. I wrote these down as they were raised, so the order is maybe a little disjointed. So Mr. Heine raised concerns with Doe right-of-way being big enough, which was also raised by Mr. Johnson. I recognize Mr. Johnson has a lot of experience building roadways and does a great job at it. However, the fact remains, there will be a road to county specs because that's the only way a road can be built on the right-of-way. It's got to be the county specs because it's a public road. Public has the right to use it. Mr. Evans is building it at his own expense. If that means more of the ditch needs to be on his property, that's just what he has to do to fit it there. We understand there's got to be a certain amount of rise. And if it means that some of his land becomes unusable because he has to provide some ditch space, that's the way it's got to be, because it's got to be a road to county specs. He is representing to you that the roadways in from the north and the east and the west will be to county standards. It has to be. That's what the law requires. As it relates to road maintenance issues, the roadway for Buck, based on what I'm hearing tonight, we may be misunderstanding exactly how far along it is, but we did acknowledge earlier, we believe it's way ahead of schedule. That is the linchpin though. The rest of it gets developed as Buck is finished. Everything comes off of Buck. It's going to be developed from the north to the south. So before it's put into use, before there will be campsites, before there will be campers, these roads and the route in has to be to county standards. You want to make that a condition, that's fine. That's the law anyway. As it relates to road maintenance, we have already submitted an initial draft road maintenance agreement to the developer who owns nearly every other lot in that area to start that negotiation. We have an interest in making sure there is an agreement in place to maintain that road. But no matter what, Mr. Evans, for his business to succeed, needs to have passable roadways. So that is a red herring issue that is being presented to this commission. If the roads aren't passable, his campers aren't going to get their campers in and out, their RVs, their equipment. It's useless to have a campground that nobody can reach. So I would implore you to understand that he knows there has to be roads built to county standards. Again, I would like to point out, Mr. Heine says that Mr. Evans and his business have done no work, spent no money to maintain those roads. They have receipts indicating they've spent thousands maintaining the roads as evidence for his need to have passable roadways for his campers to reach his campground. I do not want to minimize Mr. Heine's frustration. I understand this is going to have an impact to his operations out there. The fact of the matter remains, he only owns his property. If he has to retool his business so that his customers don't have to look at the campground or the campsites, that's up to him. He can put a fence on the eastern boundary of his property. There's nothing that prevents that. As they say, fences make great neighbors. But that's his choice to do. As a condition of the CUP that this commission has already passed, there must be a fence on the western boundary. However, if you look at that site plan, the right-of-way is beyond the western boundary. He doesn't own the west side of that right-of-way. Mr. Heine does. He is obligated and will put a fence along the western boundary except for the entrances and exits. Mr. Heine, I believe, described it as a circular route. You're going to have people doing circles like the Walmart parking lot, going in and out of Doe, in and out of the campground. Think about the way a campground functions. It's not a Walmart parking lot. It's a destination. People are driving in with their equipment. They're driving out with their equipment. There's not circles. That is a collector street. It's designed to get people out of the area. There's not going to be looping. That's an impractical way to describe what's going to be happening there. I don't think Mr. Evans would be opposed to moving the fence to the western boundary if there's a cost share with Mr. Heine, I suppose. But Mr. Heine has to decide that because that's his property line. But he's got an obligation to build a fence on the western boundary along where his sites are at, which he's willing to do. He also will maintain a fence along the eastern boundary as was established in the prior CUP. That will continue. Pool testing, that was brought up. That's a good point. As part of this development research project, all the background preparation that went into this, Mr. Evans researched what goes into maintaining a public pool. And he learned an awful lot. And the right protocol is to do weekly testing. He is already prepared to do all that. That is, if he's a licensed campground, that's an obligation by law. You know, he's already demonstrated he's got a license for Riken RV parks. He's got a license for Yankton RV parks. He knows how to do it right. To the best of my knowledge, from what I've understood, helping him with this process, he has the most advanced rule system for what his park tenants are supposed to be doing to get along with each other. He even includes civil fines when his people violate the park rules. I've never seen that done. In fact, I wonder if it's even legal, but I've never heard of anybody else doing that to keep their campers in line. So he operates responsibly. The fact of the matter remains we have a neighboring landowner that doesn't like the use that's being made of the property that used to be a field. I get that. But this is the way development works. And he has some control over what his patrons see. He can erect his own fence. Or he can work with my client and they could build the fence together on his side of the road. We're not adverse to that because the fence has to be built anyway. So with that in mind, Commissioner Fox indicated that wouldn't it make more sense if the fence was on the other side of the roadway? I wouldn't be opposed to having a condition that if Mr. Heine wants to cost share moving the fence to that side of the road and is in cooperation, a west side fence could be built in lieu of an east side fence, because it does make sense to have the entire side screened. Unfortunately, my client just doesn't own the entire western side that's right of way. So there's practical middle ground. Unfortunately, there's just so much bad blood, it's kind of hard to find it. But under the circumstances, I think all of the legal criteria has been met. The findings are there from the Planning Commission and the conditions are appropriate. And I do want you guys to keep in mind, if this is denied, we just go back to the CUP that we had in November, which has more magnified issues. We have the problem with Alphonse Road, which is magnified. You're going to have an entirely additional campground with all of its people in and out of Alphonse Road. That's, from Mr. Heine's perspective, sort of, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It just doesn't blend with the arguments he's trying to make. At the end of the day, he just doesn't like what's happening next door. And I get that, but he doesn't own this property. So keep that in perspective. Mr. Rumsey, very nice guy. I understand what he's trying to do here too to support Mr. Heine. I would ask you guys to keep his comments in perspective. He's one of the property owners that owns land around Lake Alexis, which came before this commission, which was also a hotly contested issue, and has personal feelings in that regard too. So unless you guys have any other questions, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Regarding Doe Avenue, so that would be the sole Buck Street to Doe and south would be the sole entrance to this new proposal.
For now,
Unless the easement.
I don't believe I'm speaking out of school, but if we are able to successfully isn't the right word. If we are confident in a legal position that this part can be serviced by the 46-foot private road easement.
Right.
Then that will also be implemented as an additional roadway, because it does take a lot of the issues that we're dealing with off the table here.
Okay.
That's a practical win for the whole neighborhood, but we just don't know who gets those rights yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
So the Planning Commission, I will review this for the record. The Planning Commission's findings, they did move to accept the conditional use permit with changes and conditions of signage on Buck Street, directing traffic to Doe Boulevard, and fencing to be erected shortly after road construction is completed. They felt egress will be from Buck Street, which is the north road, and from current campground to south is what was listed there. B, off right-of-way parking. Each lot will have parking. Refuse and service area will be present. Utilities are available. Fence and locked gate around the pool. Fencing along the west and east borders. Signs will be placed on Buck Street to direct traffic. Appropriate lighting to provide safety but minimize glare. Required yards exist. Campgrounds in area including to the south and east. And that goes to general compatibility. So those are the findings of fact that the Planning Commission has put forth. So at this time, again, I have expressed that I would like if we make a motion to approve, that the septic be installed by a licensed installer, because that was stated at the hearing, but it did not get into the findings of fact. I do believe that there needs to be a Department of Health certification for the pool. That was alluded to during the Planning Commission hearing, but it did not get into the findings of fact. And I do believe we need to vet out this road a little bit more. To Mr. Johnson's point, if you turn to our subdivision, the minimum road right-of-way, which is section 2827, roads shall have a minimum publicly dedicated right-of-way of 66 feet. An easement of 46 feet shall be reserved for private roadways. A maximum right-of-way of 100 feet may be required. So that's in our ordinance. And 2827. So down below in 2828, when it talks about the road standards, this is where our 24-foot minimum width with a 4-to-1 maximum inslope in the ditch. You can have a gravel service, and you need to have an initial 3-inch gravel lift, and then after a winter, you're supposed to put another 3-inch on the driving surface within 1 year. So that is in our ordinance today.
And so I was reading that too. The question I have is, maybe Gary, you have, I don't think, I know you weren't involved in it either, but so this plat, this subdivision was approved. And in that, we have to assume that the drainage plan was looked at according to our subdivision ordinance. And with that, is this the right of way? And so in here, we have a 66-foot right of way minimum. What's approved on here is a 33-foot. And my question is that typical? And you can't exercise it until the neighboring property creates a subdivision? I mean, what's typical, or was, you know, do you think the intent was that that's okay, a 33-foot right of way?
That's a good legal question. Basically, that's the thing, and I've noticed a lot of these subdivisions were created that way. And my personal feeling is that, you know, I think that you can't assume that the other 33 side is ever going to get developed in certain areas.
Right.
And so I would think that that's where the 24-foot lane comes into effect, that they can get that in but like Mr. Denherter said, you know, they may have to encroach on their property some to make the ditch work. But yeah, I don't know if state's attorney has any opinion on that one, but this is the way the plat was recorded, and but like I said, I know a lot of areas that other side never gets developed. So I don't know how you would ever be able to sell off any of those lots or do any kind of business at that point.
I know the RV sales that we approved it would be to the west of here. And they had a 66-foot easement entirely on the property, not split between the neighboring property. That's how that one was drawn. So they took ownership for 66 feet of road on that. So at minimum, according to our ordinance, we have to have at least 46 feet if we call it a private roadway. So if we want to maintain Doe as a private road to this property, we need 46 feet of easement.
Technically, if that's a private, then do the pins move out to the center line of the right of way and then the 46 back?
Say that again.
Okay, this is platted with where the original property would have been in the center of that right of way, actually on the western edge of that right of way.
Right.
So if it were to be a private road,
Mhm.
do the pins move to the center of what would be a 66-foot right of way? And then you come back 46 foot in for your road.
Yep.
So from where that pin is, it's
You gotta
really
add 13 feet. Yep.
Okay.
So you're taking another 13 feet to meet our ordinance requirement to have 46 feet for a private road.
Okay, I want to interrupt you here a little bit. So first of all, last Friday, we spent about 2 hours or so with the state's attorney, with Mr. Vetter and Mr. Conklin, going through all of these issues. And that specific question was asked, can we put a road there on the 33-foot right-of-way? The legal opinion of Mr. Klimish at that time was absolutely, you just have to make sure you've got a spec roadway and the 24-foot driving surface must be within the right of way. Now, this isn't a private roadway. This is a public roadway. The section that you're referring to, 2827, is for the platting of a road. It's the right of way that's got to be at a minimum. Unfortunately, when this plat was approved, that rule wasn't followed. But the fact of the matter remains that is platted that way and it's public right of way. So I would say 2827 doesn't apply at all. The one that matters is 2828, which must matter. That's the one that we have to figure out how to fit it in there. And if it ultimately means Mr. Evans has to give up some of his property so that it's the driving surface is inside that right of way, that's what he's got to do, because 2828 has to be followed. It just must. That's the law. You can make it a condition of the CUP if you wish, but it's not a road if it's not done properly. He can't have, I think it's fair to say it can't be used as a public road service unless it's built to spec. So that's his problem. But
Well, it can't be built as a public road unless it's 66 feet wide.
no, the right of way must be 66 feet wide. Road shall have a minimum publicly dedicated right of way of 66 feet. That dedicated right of way was 33 feet, but this commission approved it.
Not this commission,
this
Okay,
a
I'm sorry.
commission.
That was poorly stated, yes.
It was approved.
A county commission, sitting where you guys are today, approved it. That's the layout of the property that we have to deal with. That's public land. He's got to make sure the driving road surface is to county specs. And if we can find, we can build it on that 46-foot private road easement, great. I mean, now we don't have an issue, but we don't have that legal answer yet. And I don't know if we're going to get pushback if we declare it. I think we're going to have to approach all of the neighboring property owners and commit that to some sort of recordable instrument just to make sure we know what the rights are, because that's an ideal solution for everything. But I don't think we can count on it, just like we could never count on Mr. Heine dedicating the other 33 feet on the other side of the property line. And the 33 feet, as you see it here, comes from history. I wouldn't say it's a mistake. That's on I think it's a quarter section line or an eighth section line. When those are platted out, historically, those are treated as though those will eventually be roads on the ETJ road grid. I believe that's imposed by the city. But the fact remains, we have 33 feet of dedicated right-of-way. That seems to contradict what 2827 says was supposed to happen, but here we sit. Ultimately, I could throw out, well, we'll just go ahead and dedicate as public right-of-way some of his property to the east, but he doesn't own that northern property, so he can't do that. You know what I mean? He doesn't own lot 16, so he can't dedicate additional land of his own to public right-of-way. So that's not an issue. So we have limited space to work with, but he's got to do what he's got to do to make it fit.
So if a camper egresses out of the campground or RV park and turns left, south, will he proceed down past Mr. Heine's property?
That, I believe, was an error in the findings of fact, because I don't remember anybody making a representation that the roads would be connected to the roadways within the campground on the lot 2 or tract 2 that's below what we see here on the screen. This was going to be treated as an entirely closed, separate campground.
Lot 2 won't have access to Doe Road. is
Not at
what
this
you're
point.
saying.
I don't believe that's the plan.
I
The
know.
only difference would be is if
But
Doe was eventually built all the way to the south, because as it stands right now, there's a roadway in Yankton RV Park.
So, as I stated in the previous meetings, there will be no access from RV park to RV park. And I have no plans as of right now to build a road, Doe Road from on the bordering property of the existing park to go south onto Alphonse. It's, the main objective is to get the traffic to the north over there.
So this old driver comes out and turns left, he's gonna have to back his camper up to at least back to your campground or your RV park and drive in and go around the circuit and then go right.
So I do not do dailies or weekly camping out there. I strictly do seasonal camping out there. When people are coming into my campground or leaving, I have to be there in order for them to pull it in or pull it out. I don't want people backing on my grass. It's a strict rule. I have fines for backing or parking on my grass. You can't do that. So when they come in, they will be directed from the north into the lot and be parked there for a year, 2 years, whichever. And then if they leave, they will know to leave north. I will be there to guide them out and make sure that they are parked and left safely without hitting any fences, vehicles, grass, stuff like that.
One final point I'd like to address regarding surveys and the pins. The pins are where the pins are. If you look on the survey as it exists, there's a number of pins that have been set. The lathe stakes that were there that were used where Mr. Evans put those posts in were found by surveyors. So if you go out and you find those posts, you'll see where a surveyor marked the corners.
So
Those
you're
weren't
gonna-
arbitrary
You're
placements.
gonna tell me nobody ever moves a pin?
I won't say that, but you heard Mr.
I don't
Evans
think you would
testify.
either.
Well, you heard him indicate to you, Commissioner, that he doesn't like that possibility, which is why he drives those stakes in, because it's so easy to kick and move a lathe stake. They have a limited lifespan in the ground, and he was trying to address that issue, so he knew where his corners were. I'm assuming that what he tells you is truthful. So I believe that addresses your issue. If anybody wants to repay the cost to have a surveyor come out, that can easily be confirmed. But the lot lines are where the lot lines are, and you can't build beyond your lot line. Your property lines are defined by the size of your lot, which has been surveyed, which has been reduced to a plat and approved by this commission. So, you work with what you got. And you can find those pins again if you want to spend the money to do so. But Mr. Evans has indicated that he's already done that, and he marked where the lathe stakes were. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. So at this point, I think we need to start rounding out discussion and making decisions.
I think Doe Road in the future is going to be a disaster, but I don't see that necessarily as the applicant's fault. I think that should have been platted differently, but again, I don't know that it's the applicant's fault. Because what's going to happen is he'll build his section of road and then, 15 maybe he'll end up with, but then 14 to the north is going to be a different, and I don't know.
So what the issue is there's a gap between the city's ETJ they have within 3 miles or whichever, and the Yankton County subdivision ordinance. There's a gap there. And as Ryan stated, that was an issue with Alphonse Road because he built the road on his whole side there when it first got built. So that was the trailer park that built it on that side. So right now, the trailer parks road is actually to spec to how it should be. From Alphonse, where it ends, the trailer park road ends, and it goes down to Heine's. I believe Ryan built it. I don't know who built it for sure. But whoever built that road built it with a smaller surface, and it's not centered. So Gary actually came out and measured the road, and if you can confirm with them that when you measured it, the road, if it was to have a 24-foot surface area, would line up with the trailer parks road that was within the right, that meets the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, like I stated earlier, obviously you would need a survey to prove all this, but when you do visually see where his corner is, take a tape out 33 feet and then look down to the east to Deer Boulevard, it does seem to line up with the center line of the road when you come in off Deer Boulevard. But so that's basically what we did.
So my point, I'm sorry. So my point is, the same problem happened with Alphonse Road. And I believe if we can get a road agreement, I mean, I've drafted a road agreement and sent it to him. The road agreement that I came up with was Whitetail Run has like 200 feet of his roadway that he actually uses of Alphonse Road. So that's split between the four of us. And then the next 300 feet.
I'm gonna
that-
stop
Yeah,
you.
that's,
Well,
I know you're
I'm
trying
trying to
trying to explain it, but
So, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I'm going down a hole. So basically, my point is that Alphonse Road with a bigger surface area will easily meet the road standards, as I believe. If it ever does with that 30 feet, go to the other side, I believe it won't be a mess. I think it will be to the standards, just as Alphonse Road.
anyone care to make a motion? And before, if someone does make a motion, I ask that you do not second the motion right away, so we can make sure we get wording correctly. If anybody wants to add anything to it. If there's anything stated about the road, the subdivision, we should reference section 2828 to make sure that is followed.
Deb, if we approve this, this would take precedence over the other conditional use permit. If it would get denied for some reason, his other conditional use permit, would that still hold up? How does that work? Well, he has a conditional use permit. He got approved. Was it in November for this exact same property? And
so
from
it's-
what I understand, he's actually coming in to make changes, and he applied a new conditional use permit. Is that?
So essentially, there's a standing CUP for this property for a project. This one, as I understand, you want to replace the first. So as part of the motion, should probably repeal the previous CUP.
Your microphone's not on.
One motion that does both.
That's what I mean. As part of a condition is if this gets approved, that CUP is null and void.
Well, does that mean then that those rules that he had before don't apply? The fences, the setback?
Well, they're supposed to be in this one. That's why I read the conditions that they put on was they did say fencing along west and east border as part of the findings of fact.
Is this filed as an amended CUP?
No.
And
Doesn't appear to be.
no, our ordinance does not allow us to amend conditional use permits.
just replace it.
Yeah, so if it's granted, it would replace. If it's not, it will stand.
So I think you just have to have that as part of your motion.
Otherwise you have two conflicting CUPs.
Right.
So one thing in item 5 that the planning commission did state, they said ingress egress will be from Buck Street and from current campground to the south. That, and again, that should be in the motion, that item 5 of the findings of fact, that needs to be stricken, that language. It should only be from Buck Street, ingress egress from Buck Street.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna list Doe first, Doe and Buck. Doe Boulevard. and
Could you
Buck
also
Street.
add or from private roadway easement, if applicable? Because we do want to explore that.
So Commissioner Loest, are you thinking maybe what might be easiest would just be to go through the findings of fact, and the motion would be to approve the findings of fact 1, 2, 3, but then approve like 5 with your conditions?
Well, how do you do that if they're getting rid of the old one?
No, on this one, the whole,
So we're only dealing with this one. We don't care about the old one that they want to amend.
correct, because what they're saying is everything from the old one is contained in the new one,
I don't think so.
except for,
Yes, but I'll restate that. Everything, the conditions that are contained in the prior CUP can carry forward. So the findings assume that fact. So that would be the fencing in the east and the west.
so
And that's in the findings in fact.
so the findings, Commissioner Howie Fox, these findings include the same conditions in the old one that they're keeping, but different ones given his change in how he laid it out.
If you would like to specifically recite those, in your findings in November, you said that the conditions were no year-round residence, privacy fence on the east and west within 1 year of construction.
Well, I think, not to
And-
interrupt, but I will. I think those should specifically be added to this one then. Because otherwise it's, oh, we're talking about it's all there, and it's not all there.
Yeah, so write these down.
No, how about you just give it to us, we read it.
Okay, well, that's what I'm doing. No year-round residence, privacy fence on the east and west within 1 year of construction, and pool has to have a fence and lock for safety reasons. And then the planning board also added the condition of a sign directing access from Buck.
And testing.
No, that wasn't in the old.
That wasn't in, and that wasn't a recommendation before, but you would comply with the conditions of
state
any,
health
yeah, and that actually is a condition of a campground license issued by the state. There's a whole section of regulations regarding pools and campgrounds. So that's where that testing stuff comes from.
So essentially, the only thing that is being changed from last CUP to this CUP is the layout and the access.
Yes.
So to me, it's how they wrote the motion here was moved to accept conditional use permit with changes and conditions of signage on Buck Street. So essentially, tonight, we're moving to accept essentially the original conditional use permit conditions.
I'm going to attempt this here.
Okay, well, you better get
So-
it right the first time.
So I'm gonna move approval.
I do have I
Oh,
mean,
geez.
because I have to put the motion in the minutes.
Mhm.
And we had a problem with this before and we had to redo it because something was not right. So I want it exact for what I'm supposed to put in. So we don't have to do this again.
Okay, so I'm gonna move approval of the conditional use permit based on the findings of fact, which you don't have to put this in, Patty, but which include the sign. They include the fencing on east and west.
And that's in there.
That's what I'm saying. This is all
Yep.
in here already. With the additional conditions that ingress egress will be from Buck Street to Doe or from Buck to Private Drive. There will be no year-round residents.
That was in the original.
Well, that was the original CUP, but I'm referencing this findings in fact from planning and zoning. You will obtain the approval from the Department of Health for the pool and campground license. The septic will be installed by a licensed plumber.
That's not what you said, was another licensed
Licensed
installer.
And then I've got that the Buck and Doe will be inspected to county road standards prior to the campground opening.
Do you want to reference 2828?
Yeah, per section 2828 of our county ordinance.
So just 8-28.
It's 2,828.
I'll second that.
So I want to note on there that I have ingress egress from Buck to Doe or Buck to Private. Not, there will be no access from the campground to the south.
So that's, I'm sorry, that's saying, that's from campground to campground.
Right, yep.
Okay, yep, I have no problem with that. I was
Okay.
just making sure that you weren't saying I could never build a road to the south, because that's not my plan right now, but if it ever were to come up, it is right away.
Yeah, it's just from campground to campground. Because that's what's in the findings, which is an error that.
So I'm gonna restate my chicken scratch that I tried to get there. So your motion is move approval of conditional use permit based on findings of fact with additional conditions that ingress egress is from Buck to Doe or Buck to Private Drive. No access from campground to the south. No year-round residents. Approval from the Department of Health for pool and campground license. Septic installed by licensed installer and Buck Doe will be inspected to county standards per ordinance 2828 before
Before
use
operation of the campground.
operation. I didn't get that last one, before operation. And Clemish seconded, correct? You're still good seconding all that? Okay,
Yeah, I have some discussion points.
you bet.
I don't see on the plat map of the site, location for a business office or whatever you're gonna be in to monitor the egress to the site.
So I don't have business offices at my place.
Whatever you call the building on Alphonse Road, that
The maroon one.
That's just a utility building. It's not like an office. You're
Okay.
wondering how I'm gonna monitor?
how are you gonna sit? You told me that you're gonna monitor everybody that goes in and out.
Correct.
Are you just gonna sit in your vehicle out there and do that?
So we have campground managers that come to the parks and stuff and take care of everything. Like I have a guy who mows and stuff for me. I'll have the same thing there. I'll have a campground manager there. If anybody is to pull in, they have to come in a scheduled time. My campground manager will meet them there and make sure it's done properly.
That seems a little bit unlikely to me, but the next question is, are these lots 48 feet wide? Is that right?
I think there's
48 by 60, is that what it said?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different measurements on
Yeah, well,
there.
that's close enough.
Yeah, they're right there. I think one's 48 by 60 and the other one's 45 by 50. There's like 7
Do we
of
have
them.
any requirements for pool and lazy river setbacks from property lines?
I think just the building associated with that, your bathrooms have to be 25
Which
foot
is
off.
correct, which is listed on the plan
And
as
the
a
pool
20.
can go right up to the edge of the boundary line.
I'm not sure for building setbacks what's required. Like for if a pool is a building, I'm not sure if it is.
I wouldn't think it would be, but it's a structure that, it seems to me like it's pretty crowded in 48 feet. And if there's any setback
So
at
it's
all,
actually
maybe-
the length is actually 60 feet. So from the property line to the road is 60 feet.
Right, I agree. Yeah,
So
and it looks like you got 3 of those.
in the whole,
length.
correct. So the whole area, let's see, it'd be 48 plus 48 plus 48, roughly 150 feet by 60 feet would be the area for the pool, splash pad, and lazy river.
The last point that I would like to see resolved or in the agreement is I'd like some kind of reference to the quality of the fence. Because there's a significant difference, in my opinion, between the quality of the fence that the Petersons have put up and the quality of the fence that you have.
I would like to address that definitely. So what part of my fence do you think quality was bad?
Parts that blew down.
So treated, brand new treated 4x4 posts.
Isn't much for an 8-foot fence.
Well, it's like 7 foot, couple inches, but that's what they told me. The fencing company told me, they said, hey, this is what you can use for it. And it was 4x4 posts. I mean, it was 70 to 80 mile an hour winds. It's been up for, we had a couple windstorms, I believe, this summer, and it withstood that. There's no wind protection from the north. So when winter comes and those high
You're
winds.
putting up a nice RV park, and I
Thank
guess
you.
I'd like to see a nice fence.
Thank you.
A substantial one that won't be blown over by wind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I mean, I'll build my other one to the existing one to how it was before. If it happens again, I'll redo it because I'm not going to keep doing that. I was told that the 4x4 treated post for a 7-foot fence with lattice on the top was good, I guess. I know the concrete was good on it because the 4x4 is literally snapped off at the concrete and went down. But other than that, everything stayed pretty good. So
I guess the only other thing, and it's certainly not a requirement, it's just a suggestion to think about, but maybe to help in the collaboration between you and the neighbors and the neighbors concerned about running his business, if maybe 50 feet or 100 feet of fence on the south side of the park, running from the west border 60 or 100 feet.
At the existing park?
Yeah, no, that of the new park might be appropriate. Might help.
The south property line?
Might help Mr. Heine and his problems.
I get what you're saying. So bring it down. I get it.
If Doe isn't gonna go on south, it's just an idea.
Okay. You know, honestly, I really wish between me and Ryan that we could meet eye to eye. I wish there was a way. I mean, I wish there was just a snap of my fingers and we could get along and figure things out together. I really want to get along with my neighbors.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that too, I don't know if it needs to be in the motion, but if it's agreeable to move that fence to your side, because the logistics right now is he can't have it on the west side of the road because that's public right of way.
I think that's something that they're gonna have to figure out.
I know, but if
between them and-
our CUP mandates it to be on the west side of Matt's property.
How can we?
I have a comment regarding the motion that was made. It didn't refer to the signage and the fencing.
That is in the.
That's in the findings of fact.
Okay.
Yep, that's in there.
That, these are in addition to.
Right,
Yes.
Oh.
correct.
Thank you though
Yep.
for,
Yep.
because it's been missed before.
I'd rather not come back and revisit this again.
Yep.
And I would just mention, I don't think part of the motion was what you talked about earlier in getting rid of the old one, however you want to term it. I think that was what Mr. Denver was.
I think we're
Yeah.
moving forward from that.
At the end, just say, and we get rid of the old one.
I just thought that was,
I think we're just
replace-
dealing with this one.
Supersedes or something.
yeah.
I do think it's appropriate to add a condition, though, that if Mr. Heine and Mr.
Mask.
Evans are able to reach an agreement on a fence on the western side, that could take the place of the western
And that's
fence.
what I'm
I
saying.
think that's what you were getting at. I think that's an appropriate alternative condition.
Couldn't they then come forward with a variance request if they could agree?
We don't want to see him again.
Just saying. Mr. Heine.
I was just, wasn't quite following what you're saying with this moving of a fence. It is a little hard to follow what,
Essentially, he would build you a fence.
okay, and it'd be on his west border.
It would be right on the
Okay.
property line.
So the problem is, see the
Mhm.
pin, okay, to the, right there, stop,
Yeah.
that pin. So he can't build anything to the west of that pin because it's not his property.
Well, it is his property, but it's in the ROW.
It's in the right of way.
It's in the right of way.
So he can't technically build it.
It is your property, just it's in the right of way on your property, so,
Road here and that's it.
yeah.
And so if it would be, and that, we don't have to decide tonight, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, leave it open. If it would be agreeable to you, long and short is he would build the fence on your property.
On your side of the
But-
easement.
The two of them
Right,
agree,
yeah.
we could build it there instead. I think that's an appropriate alternative.
Because that would be the way to, as it stands, he can't build a fence in the middle of the right of way. And so that road, he can't block the road. He can only go to his property line where that pin is.
Okay,
And I know it would be probably preferable for you to have it on your,
yes.
on the west side of the road.
Because of traffic and
Yeah.
lots of noise, traffic and
Yeah.
all those other things.
So that's, I would like to amend my motion to leave that option open.
Second.
Second.
Patty's liking that. Not.
Well, right now, how it is in the findings of fact is there is, where'd it go? east, fence,
East-west.
yep, fencing along west and east border.
Yeah. So that technically.
I mean, I think if you put it on Mr. Heine's property, it would still meet the intent of the CUP.
Yep.
Sure, if they would agree.
If they don't agree and it's on his property, we still meet the intent of the findings of fact.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to read this motion one more time. Move approval of CUP based on finding of fact with additional conditions that ingress egress are from Buck to Doe or Buck to Private Drive, no access from the campground to the south, no year-round residence, approval from Department of Health for pool and campground licensing. Septic system is installed by a licensed installer, and Buck and Doe will be inspected to county standards per section 2828 of the ordinance before operation of the campground. And can we just say this essentially supersedes previous CUP?
Yes.
You don't have to have a date in there or anything from when that was approved.
We can get a number of it and reference the number in the,
Okay.
do you know what the number was?
Action number here.
Hmm.
20534Z,
2053Z.
20534Z.
I'll just put that in there then to reference that.
Okay, that'll work. Further discussion? All right. Roll call vote.
Joe,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Wanda,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Denherter, I
I'd
think you
also
should
like
work
to-
on that proposal.
Work on that proposal, she said. I'd also like to thank everybody for being so thorough and keeping everything on track. I know it did last long, but it probably could have lasted a lot longer if we didn't stay on track, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So just a recommendation to help out Patty. Please please review the minutes before she does anything with them to
Yep.
confirm that
Yep.
this is what everybody agrees was the motion, please.
Yep, I will make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Don't move the chairs. Just leave them.
9:20. So our last conditional use is for Richard List, and thank you so much for waiting till the end. So please come up. Tell us what your application is for.
My application is to request for a building larger than what I am allowed to on the said property at 1305 Timberland Drive, but does comply with all the guidelines of the said permit, except for more square foot area.
Okay. And how big is your building?
55 by 124.
Okay. We have any questions for the applicant at this time?
How big's your lot?
What's that?
How many acres is your lot? Your lot
Quite
size?
hearing, sir.
How big is your lot? How
The
many
lot
acres?
is actually, I believe, 4 acres.
Okay.
Any other questions right now? All right, sir, go ahead and sit down. I'm going to ask for public comment.
Thank you.
Would anyone care to make a public comment on this application? All right, public comment is closed with no comments. We'll bring it back to the commission for review. So as far as findings of fact at the planning commission level, they did recommend to approve the conditional use permit. Ingress egress exists at the current site. There if I remember correctly, looking at Beacon, there's a house there, and there's another shed there as well. No additional traffic, house with a driveway. House on the property has refuse and a service area. There's utilities. No screening or buffering is planned at this time, and no signs are needed at this time. Required yards and open spaces are being met, so the setbacks off the property line are being met. General compatibility.
You can take public comment.
Yep, I did, and there wasn't any public
Okay,
comment,
great.
so, yep.
Sorry,
I would
missed
move
that.
to approve it.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use application from Richard List for the accessory structure. Further discussion?
Just note it's ag land to the east side of the road, so it certainly fits.
Yes. All right, there being no further discussion, I will take a roll call vote.
Wanda,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes, conditional use permit application approved. If they were all that easy, our evening would be
You
short.
should have asked to go first.
Thank you so much. Drive safe.
Thank you.
So at this time, entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go back into regular session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are back in regular session. And public comment. Would anyone care to make a public comment at this time? All right, no comment, so public comment is closed. We already did commissioner updates, and so far, the only thing I have for the next meeting is to discuss the March state meeting and who is going to attend and the possibility of moving the regular commission meeting that week. So that will be on the agenda for 2 weeks from tonight. Anything else?
I'd like to, give a brief update on Article 5 plans and comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Go.
All right. Well, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I
Second.
have a motion by Healy, second by Clemish to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned. 9:25.